It's always in the news. Cybercriminals attacking great organizations, wreaking havoc on the trust of their brand.
We socialize cybersecurity for you to raise awareness.
Interviewing leaders who built and protect great brands.
We help talented people enter into this incredible field, and we share our research at blockbuster true cybercrime stories.
This is Cybercrime Junkies. And now the show. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Cybercrime Junkies. I am your host, David Morrow, and I am very honored in the studio today. We have two fantastic guests, and listeners are going to get a lot out of this. We've got Brad Wolfenden, director of cyber sports and leader at several different organizations, kind of elevating cybersecurity awareness through gamification, through competition and esports. We've got some great discussions on that. And then we're going to talk about what employers want, discuss the skills gap and upcoming job fairs with Jill Weidman, who's the chief of staff at Gorilla Corp. And both of you are leaders in the Silicon Valley think tank that we're a part of. And we welcome you both for attending. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
So let's start. Jill, let's approach the topic that we always hear, right? First of all, give the listeners and the viewers just a real recap of your current role and what initiatives that you drive.
So I am the chief of staff with Gorilla Corporation, which is a global marketing company that works with the technology industry. We focus on being that connector and building the relationships between vendors and their partners. And so we really help to drive initiatives to help increase profits and just increase the interactions between vendors and their partners. I am also really honored to be the chief of staff for the Tutorial Breda Institute, which is a Silicon Valley think tank that focuses on partnerships. And we focus on partnerships in cybersecurity, AI, and cloud data. So my point for being here today is to really focus on the human talent gap in cybersecurity and AI, and how the Institute is working with academia, public and private sector organizations to try and mitigate that issue. And so I'm really excited to be here.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, we hear all the time through the recruiters that we speak to, the CISOs that we meet, about the skills gap. They keep saying, there's a skills gap. There's a lot on social media and in the regular standard media about, cybersecurity has this skills gap. To us, personally, it doesn't seem like there's a skills gap. It seems like there are hosts and hosts of talented resources that are going through traditional and non-traditional methods to break into cybersecurity. There's a passion here to enter this field because they are driven by a lot of factors, but mostly to serve and protect. There's a greater calling here.
Absolutely.
And it's a great culture to be a part of, right? Because there's a greater mission, but there doesn't seem to be a skills gap. What's your take on that phrase, and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
So I think that our one of our biggest issues is not that the people aren't there and that we aren't able to get there. It's how are we looking for the people? What are we putting out there? We need to look at everything from our hiring practices to how we're posting our jobs to what we're willing to bring in and train, because there are a ton of amazing people out there who are not going through a traditional 4-year college path as we've done in the past, or as you can do with several other jobs out there in the industry. You want to be in business, you go and you get a marketing degree, or you get a management degree or a financial degree, and you go through school and you do all of those classes, and it's consistent over years as to the skills that you need to do those. But cybersecurity is not that way. It is constantly changing. It is constantly evolving. And we as an industry have got to change the way we're writing job descriptions, and we're writing qualifications for those, and how we're hiring, because we're not going to find a unicorn that knows how to do everything in cybersecurity, because it's just such a vast, you know, over umbrella of what, you know, cybersecurity really is. There's so many ways to get into it and to support it, from actually working on the computer and the coding and the programming side of it, to management and program management. And, you know, there's just so many different ways to get into it. And we have to open up what we're looking for. We can't just expect that everybody's going to go through a traditional 4-year college. We might have amazing people who are going through boot camps and certification programs, who are doing things like the cyber games, where they're out there just taking natural skills that they have in computer, just being on the, you know, on the computer and hacking and coding, and they're gamifying that through things like the cyber games. And why are we not chasing these people? Because that's really where we're going to find the talent that we need to fill the gaps that we have.
Absolutely. That was put very well. When I think about it, it seems like there are so many different challenges that people have when they're looking to break into cybersecurity. There's, you know, entry level. Let me ask you this: like, are there entry level positions in cybersecurity?
I think that there are.
Do they exist?
I think that there are entry level positions. I think that companies are, to an extent, we're seeing such an increase in the cyber breaches and all of the issues that we're seeing. I think that some companies are feeling overwhelmed, and they're a little bit behind the game in having support to handle things on their stuff. And so they're wanting to hire in all of the experience. But there are so many people out there that if we can start being proactive in this, we can get people in and train them up through where we want them to be, and let them come in and learn alongside, you know, experts that are already doing it, and we can build out the teams that we want. And we're not going to find it in one person. We're going to have to be open to.
So let's define our terms, right? Because when we think of, okay, we want an entry level position in cybersecurity. Well, the truth is the ideal model. There is no matter how brilliant one person can be, they cannot know it all, especially in cybersecurity. They can't know red teaming, blue teaming, purple teaming, all of the compliance, the incident response planning, the operational resilience, and then have the business acumen to make internal business cases to get the resources. Those are several different skill sets that no one person has, right? I mean, I think we all understand that. But I think there's great value in having somebody senior inside an organization, and then recruiting young talent that can be mentored, right? Absolutely. That can be brought up. And when we say no experience, right, or entry level, I don't think that we really mean, and when I say we, I mean like from an employer's standpoint, or even from the employee candidate standpoint, that we really mean no clue what cybersecurity is about. Like, I was doing cosmetic sales and now I'm a cybersecurity specialist. No, that's not, that leap of entry level is not realistic. I think that's fair. But what they mean by entry level, generally from what I see, is, okay, you might not have worked in a SOC before, right? You might not have worked for a company, you know, underneath a CISO before, but you've done things like created a home lab, you've done Try Hack Me, you've attended cyber games, capture the flags, things like that, which shows that you know how to do the job well, and you're passionate about learning and moving up within that organization. Is that along the lines of some of the guidance we can give people?
I think absolutely. We need to recognize that. And again, when you look at the people that are coming into this industry, I mean, how many of them have been, hacking around on their computers since they were in middle school
Oh,
or
yeah.
earlier. I mean, we're looking at bringing people in, so they may not have traditional experience in the
Absolutely.
workforce, but that doesn't mean that they don't have the capabilities. It doesn't mean that they don't have the experience or the insight to be able to think outside the box and look at the problem at hand and find a solution for you.
Absolutely. And a lot of the CISOs that we talk to that work for mid-size organizations, smaller organizations, they're not even placing a 4-year college degree requirement. Some of the larger companies just have like a blanket requirement for that, but I think exceptions need to be made, because if somebody can do the job, right, and can demonstrate it through their home labs, their experience, through the events that they've attended, and they can show those results from those events, all of that. I mean, there's so many certifications, there's so many different ways to demonstrate. Within a point of time, I knew this, and since then, I continue to advance in my professional development.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, there is a, a needs gap out there for sure of, several million people worldwide within this industry. If we aren't looking at alternative ways to bring people into this, we're never going to meet that
Absolutely.
gap. And when you look at the high school level now, we're starting to see, I know in my school district
Yeah,
for
with
where my kids
STEM and
go to
STEAM
school,
education and
we're
things like
starting to see programs where they're getting CompTIA certifications in high school.
that.
They're
Absolutely.
working with Cisco and they're getting certified through Cisco in high school, where they can get out and come into the industry with a certain level of education in the field. And we need to be open to hiring those people. We look at our military men and women that are coming out, that are going through boot camps and getting reskilled to be able to come into the industry. These are people that have the ability to look at a problem and to think through it and to think outside the box and to attack it. We need to be looking at these people to bring them in, and know that there is going to be a level of training up that we have to do within our own organizations. But as a past business owner, bringing somebody in that has just the basic level that I can train up to do it the way I want it done, that's really valuable from from my point of view as a business owner, to be able to do that, to know that they're going to be doing it the way I want it done, that they're going to go through our processes and they're going to work within our organization to meet the goals that we have. There's a lot
Absolutely.
of value in that.
Yeah. No, and thank you for that, Jill. So I wanna mix it up here, because then I want to return to this topic, because I want to talk about boot camps. I'd like to talk about the military transition, because there are so many in trade schools, traditional trade schools, that people would think of coming out of school. Well, I don't feel like I want to go to a 4-year college. I want to go be a plumber or a welder or whatever. And they've got the county trade schools. Those are now today some of the breeding grounds of future cybersecurity leaders. Right? Everybody, just wanted to mention Cybercrime Junkies Prime. We now have a subscription available through our podcast, and it offers exclusive content, bonus episodes, and even pre-releases of all of our standard shows.
We keep it simple. It's just the cost of 1 cup of coffee 1 time a month, and you can cancel anytime.
You can subscribe by scanning the QR code next to me in the video, or by clicking the link in the show notes. If you select not to subscribe to our Prime membership, please at least consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. It's at Cybercrime Junkies Podcast on YouTube, and it's absolutely free. It allows us to bring great guests on the show. Thank you for your support, and now let's get back to it. Right. So let's circle back with it. But first, I want to introduce and address Brad, who is all decked in his cyber games and esports gear. And it's really exciting to see. So when I was really excited about having somebody on that can talk about this, I'm a huge fan of esports. Like, I think it's so cool. I think gamification, like kids go to traditional, they get in the bus, they go to traditional school, and then they come back, and what do? They spend hours in games, right? But what I've seen in the last few years in the K-12 system is the gamification of it, right? The asking of questions through polls and responders and things like that, and kids love it, right? So tell us about how you first introduce yourself, your background, please.
Okay.
So and then let's get into like how are we driving esports and games like that into cybersecurity experience?
Great, thanks, David. So good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Wolfenden. I'm the director of cyber sports here at Cat's Eye Play Cyber. A big part of my responsibility these days is to run the U.S. Cyber Games program. And how I got there is a pretty convoluted path, and I think it speaks to a lot of what we've been discussing in finding candidates from different backgrounds. So my professional career actually started in private education. Did a lot of work for organizations that were writing various standardized tests and providing tutoring and things like that. And from there, moved into the cybersecurity field through a learning and training platform. And one that the developing organization behind the platform was looking to transition it away from a pretty DoD-centric product into one that could support both commercial and academic partners. And so there's so many interesting things that have been discussed throughout this morning already that I'm just like, and so, when we're talking about, are there entry-level roles in cyber? Of course there are. When we're talking about how do we kind of switch up the conversation around recruitment and rewriting job descriptions and creating language in the interview process and around qualifications that speak to a wider audience, that are a little bit more intentional in terms of truly looking for diversity in candidates and in thought and really pulling out that piece that I think we're talking about as aptitude. And then finally, when we're looking at how we then land conversations with parents, with counselors, with educators, with religious leaders, with business owners, it's having more of these conversations. I think most people are pretty comfortable about talking about the pathway into medicine or how to become a lawyer.
Right. And there's mentorship set up, right? You want to go become a lawyer. When I was going through school, they were like, you can go spend a day with Uncle Sal and they will show you what it's like to be a trial lawyer, right? And I would go do that. I was like, that's pretty cool. All right, I could see doing that. Did that for a while, figured out it wasn't for me. I wanted to do, rather than breaking down business, nothing against the practice, but rather than breaking down businesses and filing suit and destroying things, I wanted to build things up. And so, and cybersecurity has a greater calling. It's more patriotic kind of vision, bigger than ourselves. And so that desire to kind of serve and protect is what drives me personally. But so tell us about the cyber games, like what, and what you're doing at your organization. Like, what is it? Explain it to somebody that has no idea about it.
Yeah, great. So the U.S. Cyber Games program, we are about to kick off our third season. It really came to be through an opportunity that was presented to the U.S. from ENISA, the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity. And for the past 7 or 8 years, ENISA
they always start things first in Europe. It's like fashion. It's like fashion, right? I'm stuck here in the Midwest. I just look to what the coasts are doing, and then I see what's coming. Right? It's like in cybersecurity, I always look to like Europe to see what's coming.
Our jerseys are pretty sweet, though. So the Europeans had held the European cybersecurity competition for 7 or 8 years, and there was some interest across the EU to expand that competition to include some international participants. So they had reached out to the US through NIST's National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. At that time, I was the co-chair of the competition's public working group. And the opportunity to essentially recruit, train, and send a team to compete on behalf of the US had been identified. As I mentioned, a lot of my cybersecurity background was in training and education, did large-scale military exercises, did a lot of work in the public and private sector, tabletops and cyber emergency response type stuff, blending backgrounds and creating academic material for those coming from cyber from all angles.
And that's so critical for organizations, because I see so many organizations, just as a rule, we deal with mid-sized organizations, enterprise, and a lot of small businesses throughout the US, in North America. And we see so many that are just coming along creating policies.
Yeah.
And now we're asking them, have you practiced them?
Yeah.
And they look at you and they're like, I don't understand. I've never heard of that. And I'm like, don't your kids do fire drills in school? Right? Your kids, like, if we didn't, then when there's an actual fire, right, they're going to be running down the hall, bumping into each other, not knowing where the exit is, right? Mm-hmm. We do fire drills. That's what this is. Once a year, once a quarter, depending on the size, the needs, the environment, just practice. Who does, it's like a living RACI document, right? Like, who does what, who has to be consulted, who has to be advised, who's contacting the lawyers, PR, who's handling the technical aspects, right? Who's sitting there watching the screen as all of the files go white during a ransomware attack? Like, who's doing what? Like, a lot of people don't know. Like, they have a acceptable use policy. Okay, we feel better, we're doing that. Okay, you're not secure yet. You're not strengthening it. It's the building of that operational resilience. And so this gamification and the education of it is what you've been driving historically.
Yeah, and so the US Cyber Games program is focused kind of in two areas. First of all, throughout the season, we very much model our initiative around esports, athletics, cybersecurity competitions, gamification, all of those things. And there's lots of reasons why. I'm sure we'll get into some of that in a little bit, but the season's structured kind of in some various core parts, and we start every season with what we call the US Cyber Open. It's a 10-day long capture the flag event, all virtual, open to anyone and everyone, regardless of age, regardless of nationality, etc.
Really? Okay. So we'll have links to all of this in the show notes. So, and this episode will be released next week. So please check this out. Sign up for these games. And there's also a job fair that we'll get into in just a second with Jill. That's going to be coming up. That's going to help people break into security or advance their careers in security. Links to all that will be in the show notes. Please take advantage of this. So go ahead, Brad. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's all good. So we kind of use that to fill our pipeline. We call those that participate in the US Cyber Games program, we call them our athletes. And moving from the US Cyber Open, we then the second phase of the season is what we call the US Cyber Combine. And it's structured after the NFL Combine, for example.
Exactly the same. Oh, this is great. Only kids that never come out of the room can participate. and so adults now that never went out of the room as kids can now participate. I love it. I freaking love it.
Yeah, and so within the Combine, this is an invite-only portion of the season. And this is where—
Does that come from the first pool? Does it come from the first pool? Okay.
Yep. So the Combine essentially, we'll have about 85, 90 athletes that we invite into the Combine. And it's a 6 to 8 week training program, much more kind of structured in terms of we have various subject matter experts, our coaches and our mentors offering technical lectures. We have various hands-on activities and exercises that are planned. We have our sponsors and partners coming in and offering resume writing workshops and career building, networking type engagement sessions. And then ultimately all of this leads up to draft day, where we identify our athletes for that season. And that really kicks off the formal training and kind of preparation for the big events every year is the International Cybersecurity Championships.
And is this federally funded? Who's funding this? Is this I know people always want to follow the money. So we're like who's funding this? Like these are brilliant ideas. Is this can you elaborate?
In part it is federally funded. We are in a 5-year cooperative agreement with the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education, which is a department under NIST.
Yep.
And then we're also very thankful to another federal government founding partner in Department of Homeland Security's CISA.
Love it. Love
and
CISA.
Then, of course, lots of industry comes in and jumps on board, from their perspective, it's a great way to recruit. And so folks like MasterCard and Microsoft and a bunch of others that believe in our mission, that believe in kind of driving the conversation towards more experiential, hands-on learning and networking opportunities. So that's a little bit about the US Cyber Games program.
That's great. How long is the season? Once it gets to your open, then you have the combine, and then the season starts. Are there individuals pitted against individuals? Is it broken up into teams?
So the US Cyber Open will kick off. Our virtual kickoff event is Thursday, June 1st. So coming up here in a couple months.
Okay. Perfect timing.
Yeah, and then the CTF will start on the 2nd. And we offer two different sides of the CTF. So we have the beginner's game room, which is intended for folks that have absolutely zero background competing or participating in capture the flag competitions. And then we have the competitive CTF. And so those are much more kind of challenging problems. We focus the CTF primarily in 5 categories: cryptography, forensics, pwn, reverse engineering, and web. From there, it's all an individual competition at the beginning. And so it's kind of come join the program. Let's get to know you. There's a whole application that we'll ask you to fill out just so we can better get to know who you are, where you're coming from, why you want to be part of the program, all of that kind of stuff. And then once we move into the combine, it becomes a mix of kind of, to put our finger on, the technical chops at an individual level, but then also looking at some small group work and some team-based activities and all of those power skills that come into play when we're looking at a successful cybersecurity professional. We're looking for leadership, we're looking for communication, we're looking for active problem-solving skills and being able to kind of pivot and take information in and make decisions on those.
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. So, and for those listeners that, because we get a lot of people from all over that will listen or watch this, and for those that don't know what CTF is, it's Capture the Flag. Can you just do a quick explanation? What is Capture the Flag?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Capture the Flag, you'll hear it referenced in multiple ways. How we run our programs is a Jeopardy style Capture the Flag. And so you have your 5 categories, those that I mentioned: crypto, forensics, pwn, reverse engineering, and web. And within each of those categories, there will be problems to be solved. And each problem is worth a certain number of points. And some of those problems will take a couple of minutes to solve, and some of those problems could take several hours or going on a day to solve. And based off of the category and the problem, different skills will be tested. So you might be, engaging in some pretty complex math on the cryptography side. You might be engaging in some open source intelligence gathering for some forensics work, for example. Or you might be looking at a piece of malware or reverse engineering a binary. Web applications are much more focused on various web exploits and sometimes you'll see categories like mobile security and Internet of Things, or critical infrastructure. So they can really,
and then they move through that, and then there's a winner with the most points at the end.
Yep.
That's phenomenal. That's excellent. So something that you just mentioned gets back to what Jill and I were speaking about, and that is the helping them and mentoring them. These are people from all walks of life that engage in these esports and these Capture the Flag events, which is phenomenal. But there's another element that once you get into a position in any company, in any field, right, you need to learn how to have effective communications, how to communicate not just externally, right, when dealing with clients or customers, but internal communications, making a business case, right? Mm-hmm. There's even Harvard classes online about, making an internal business case and how to do that, how to communicate effectively through, various methods, right? In person, live, by phone, email. There's different tactics and methodologies. So let me ask Jill this, what's the role of mentorship in that, and how does somebody that doesn't go through, let's say, traditional four-year college gain that expertise?
I think that a lot of those skills really are a mentoring type skill. I mean, it's really, you can take a class on how to build a business case, but learning how to effectively communicate, that's a lost skill because our kids are so used to texting. I mean, you might
Correct.
have a group of kids all sitting in the same room texting each other instead of having a conversation.
Oh,
We've
yeah. I've
lost.
raised four, and if you ever want to slow them down, leave them a note in cursive.
Yes.
Right? I just leave them. I write my notes in cursive, and they're like, "It took me like an hour to figure that out." I'm like, seriously, what are they teaching you kids?
So I think that some of those communication skills really are taught within the workplace. They're taught within those mentoring
Yeah.
relationships because
Well,
it's
I
just
would
such a
agree.
lost
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, and every organization is going to be a little different, right? How to effectively communicate with a certain person, their behavior, right? But I think that's a really key skill to keep in mind of something else that you have to learn, right?
I think it is. And I think that if you're interested in learning that, outside of work, going and looking at some of the different personality tests and stuff like that and understanding
Yeah.
them.
LinkedIn
Because
Learning
there are
has some things.
ton
Yeah,
of
LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, there's like there's a whole bunch of places out there
16
that can.
personalities and
Oh
there's
yeah,
colors and shapes and
absolutely.
gems and all of that. But I think it's really great to take the time to go out and read about some of those different types of personalities and stuff, because then you start having a conversation with somebody and you start to pick up on how they communicate. um,
Absolutely.
I personally like the colors, and so it's red, yellow, green, and blue, and I've done that one, and so when I'm having a conversation with somebody, I start associating a color with them because then I know how to talk back to them. When I'm having a conversation, if I want them to do something, I know that if they're very analytical, I need to talk, you know, very much towards the analytics. If they're
Right.
fun loving or
Absolutely.
whatever, then I talk to them a completely different way so that I get my point across. And so I think that taking the time to learn some of those skills is really important.
Yeah. So what's the position in, and this is a question for both of you. Like, what do we feel about boot camps that are out there? Because I hear both sides. Like, people spend a lot of money and time on these things, and there's a frustration with them. And then some others really have leveraged that to gain entry into organizations that otherwise they couldn't get an interview with. Like, what are you, any thoughts on like the host of boot camps that are out there?
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I'm happy to kick things off. Um, I think, like with anything, there are great boot camps and there are not so great boot camps. But what I think is the really important piece about sort of the emergence of things like boot camps is that it is shifting the paradigm, and it is pushing the needle in terms of how we recruit, where our pipeline exists, and kind of breaking that centuries old mindset of, you spend X number of hours in the classroom, you're now educated how I want you to be, and now therefore I can hire you. And so it's that time-based mentality towards expertise and experience that is really kind of being shattered with some of these new approaches to developing the workforce. Like I said, I think there are some boot camps that do it really well. And I think that there are some that are out to make a buck. And that's kind of true with any industry. But like I said, the most important thing here is it is shifting the paradigm, and it is bringing awareness around the fact that somebody doesn't have to have a 4-year degree from Harvard and 5 years of experience, and therefore now they're qualified.
Yep, absolutely.
I think the piece that I would add to that is, just like any other form of education that you're going to do, you're going to do research about, the school or the institute that you're going to get your education. And so you need to do your research and figure out if it's, a good quality program, and,
Like anything else, read the reviews, and alumni is really important, right? Like check the alumni, because the people that have gone through it, can they help you? Can you learn from them? Things like that, right, Jill?
And then, yes. And then you get out of your education what you put into it. It doesn't matter what industry, it doesn't matter where you're at. How much time and energy are you putting into what you're trying to learn? And what are you going to get out of that? Because some of it is the teachers and the professors and whoever's leading, and some of it is just your grit and what you have a desire to learn and how much effort you're willing to put into figuring it out and making yourself a success.
Sure, absolutely. So, what is coming up in the near future? So, Jill, you had mentioned before we went live, there's a job fair coming up, and so let's talk about our. All of us belong to the think tank. You guys are involved in leadership in the think tank. Let's talk about what the think tank is, what it does, and then the job fair that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. So the think tank is a way for us to bring people from private, public, academia, other nonprofits together to try and solve problems. And our focus is on the partnerships, bringing the right people together to look at the problems that are going on in our world, and how can we bring the right people together to try and find a solution towards that. And where we are now from where we were 3 years ago is so completely different, and it's because of the amazing people that have joined the Institute, that have brought topics to us, that have said, I'm really passionate about this, I really want to be a part of this, I want to take this further than just this one conversation that we've had, that have led to task forces like our Human Talent Gap in Cyber and AI. We are doing monthly webinars on different hot topics. We're having roundtable discussions. We're having smaller hot topic panels that get together and have conversations around different topics. And one of our conversations with one of our members was that they were part of another organization, and people were coming out of finishing their degree in cybersecurity, finishing their certifications, and they were struggling to get a job. They're struggling to get the interviews and to actually, get their foot in the door. And so we started talking about how we could support that. And we are putting together a 5-week workshop series starting on April 26th. And each week we're going to have a workshop that focuses on different areas to support getting your job. So we're going to do resume writing, and we're going to have HR experts and talent acquisition experts, life coaches coming in and talking about how you're presenting yourself on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, where people are going and looking, and just supporting getting that right initial contact out there. We're going to be talking about the interview process and the difference between virtual and in-person interviews, because we're seeing a mix of that these days, and what that looks like.
That's
how you
great.
need to prepare yourself for that. And again, it's showcasing the skills that you have and how you put yourself out there and present yourself, because you may not meet every single requirement that's listed on, that HR job description. But if you present your skills properly, there's still an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door with that company. We're going to talk about continuing education and the importance, especially in this industry, of constantly being up on what's going on and staying in tune and continuing to grow yourself in the field. And we're going to be talking about networking and the benefits of meeting people and making those relationships within your community and within different organizations where you have that opportunity to get help getting into the field that you want. And then our goal is to have a job fair at the end of that on May 24th, open to anybody. It's not just for a specific group. We're opening it up to everybody. We're reaching out to colleges and universities and people that have cyber programs. We're reaching out to other organizations. We're partnering with the Association of U.S. Cyber Forces on this initiative to reach out to our military men and women that are trying to reskill and get into the field. So it's really wide open to everybody, where we can try and just make a difference and help people get their foot in the door, and help fill that needs gap that we're seeing.
Can people attend the job fair remotely?
The job fair will be remote. Yes,
Excellent.
We are
Because
doing.
I know somebody was asking about that. So that's fantastic. So you can attend. If you can see this, you can attend that, right?
Absolutely.
And that's really key.
And if you are a company hiring, reach out to us because we are opening it up. We want to get as many companies in that are hiring as possible. We've sent out emails to several hundred people to start that process, and we are just trying to get people in. We're looking for corporate sponsors to help make this big.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fantastic, Jill. So, I mean, I love seeing that, and you know, it begs the question of like a slippery slope that traditional. Let's say you're going the traditional path where you're going through the 4-year college, right? But a lot of kids will go to that. They'll get their textbook education, right, and then they'll come home and they'll have a summer job that's unrelated to cybersecurity, right? And that's they're almost at a disadvantage because then when they graduate and they're trying and the employers are asking, can you demonstrate anything that you've learned? Well, I graduated with a 3.8 GPA as opposed, out of 4. And they're like, okay, that's good, but what do you know how to do, right? And by participating in the esports and the capture the flags, going to boot camps, engaging in job fairs, networking, all of those things, like creating that self-brand even at a young age is so critical. Yeah, and it's something that nobody's really showing kids to do this, right?
Absolutely.
So
I wish I had had some of this stuff when I was breaking into, the field and going to my first interviews.
Yeah, I mean, when I was coming out, we had to pay to be online, so let's not even get there. That was a long time ago. So, Brad, what's coming up on the agenda for you? Like the esports games, just give us the timeline. We're going to have links to the job fair, the think tank, all of the cyber games, how to register. All of that will be in the show notes. So take advantage of that, everybody.
Yeah. So there are two main initiatives in the near future with the U.S. Cyber Games program. One, there's the Season 3 kickoff, and that will be Thursday, June 1st. We'll have a virtual event, introduce all of the new folks to the program, have some great guest speakers, keynotes, panel discussions. It'll be about 3 hours starting 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, June 1st. And then the other big event that we're planning for is this coming summer. And that will be both a virtual and in-person hybrid opportunity. Live streamed from San Diego, California, will be the International Cybersecurity Championships and Conference. And so, as I mentioned, the U.S. Cyber Games program was really founded around an initiative to recruit, train, and send a team to compete on behalf of the U.S. at the ICC, International Cybersecurity Championships. Last year, we sent the Team USA to Athens, Greece to compete. This year, the U.S. gets to play host. We're tracking about 67 countries or so that will be participating. And so when I talk about the initiative behind the U.S. Cyber Games, for your international audience, most other corners of the globe have similar kind of opportunities, especially for young people to be involved. And so, there are teams from Latin America and Asia and Africa and Europe and Canada and Australia, New Zealand region. So truly global in terms of opportunities here. And each region team will structure their training and recruitment and development slightly different. It's kind of up to them to plan that. But we'll be hosting the international games in San Diego. Like I said, it will be live streamed. And that will run July 31st through August 4th. It's the week right before Black Hat.
That's fantastic. So we'll have links to all of that in the show notes. Jill, Brad, thank you so much. It has been a fantastic discussion and absolutely love what you guys are doing. Like, this is so good. It's exactly what the field needs to draw in good talent and train them up and get people excited about it. So we're really excited to be part of it. And thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, David.
Okay, thanks everybody. Check out the show notes. Reach out to Brad or Jill. We'll have their LinkedIn information. Follow them, connect with them on social media. We'll have all of that information in the show notes. Thanks everybody, and appreciate everybody attending and watching. So thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.
Hey, Well, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening. Our next episode starts right now.
Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. And download the podcast episodes available everywhere you get podcasts.
To support our show and get exclusive pre-release episodes and bonus content, please subscribe to Cybercrime Junkies Prime.
Link in the description and show notes. And thanks for being a cybercrime junkie.